Recognize the warning signs of toxic control, possession, and domestic abuse long before they escalate. And please, whatever you do, protect your friends, check in on your sisters, and never let someone's light be dimmed by fear.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast with me, Kay, the Texas girl in a Georgia world, baby. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? It is Sunday, July 12th, 2026, and your girl is feeling great. I'm Tony the Tiger, baby. So I went and surprised my boys at their basketball game this past week. I got this hair laid. And, I had to work this weekend, but I ain't tripping. And I got a whole bunch of stuff done for the house before my boys come back from their summer vacation with their dad. So, like, I've been redoing their rooms and everything is coming along quite nicely, unlike this relationship from this week's episode. But before we get into all of that, y'all know I gotta ask you, right? What y'all sipping on? Today, I am drinking something real good. I mixed some Grey Goose, some peach schnapps, some white cranberry juice, and a splash of pineapple juice over some ice. And I cooked me some rasta pasta that I am smacking on. So if you hear me smacking, mind your business, okay? Y'all know I'm being fat right now. I will never unbig my back the way that I cook. But honestly, do I care? Nah. So I got everything I need, and I hope y'all do too, because it's about that time that we get into it. Hop on in and buckle up, baby, because we taking a ride back to 2010. Bruno Mars was teaching girls their beauty with Just the Way You Are. The first iPad was released. Michael Ealy had us hating him for throwing them babies out that window and for colored girls. And then Rihanna had us falling for a rude boy. Instagram launched across the nation. And Queen Latifah got that fine ass rapper Common in the movie Just Right, which I know if y'all are like me, y'all get tired of that because they play that movie every damn day. But in Gainesville, Florida, a college student was, just trying to live her life and move on when her ex decided that he wasn't going to let her go. Y'all ready to get into it? Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Celia Huda, the victim, Cassandra Kimbrough, Antonio's girlfriend and accomplice, and the infamous murderer of the week, Antonio Drayton. Celia Huda, known to her close friends and loved ones as Sally, was born on May 27, 1989. But her story didn't start under the hot Florida sun. Celia was a native of Ghana, born across the Atlantic Ocean in West Africa. She was born to her mother, Hawuwu Huda, and her father, Ali Huda. In those earliest years of her life, Celia was wrapped up in the rich culture and traditions and community of her homeland. But her parents wanted more for their brilliant daughter. And, looking across the waters, Ali and Hawuwa made the monumental decision to pack up their lives and immigrate to the U.S. when Celia was just a little girl. They were chasing bigger dreams and seeking out the kind of educational and professional opportunities that, every immigrant family sacrifices everything to secure. So the family settled down in Gainesville, Florida. And while adapting to an entirely new country, a new culture, and rhythm of life, Sometimes it can break some households, but the Huda family, it was built on a foundation of absolute love and structure, and they kept their Ghanaian heritage alive. They didn't forget where they came from, but they were determined to conquer where they were. Celia grew up surrounded by a massive, fiercely protective extended family support system, including cousins, and she was really tight with her cousins, like her cousin Elram and her cousin Danielle. They were very close. She didn't have siblings, but y'all know how it is in the Black family. Our cousins are like our siblings anyway. Growing up in Gainesville, folks knew right away that Celia was cut from a different cloth. She wasn't the type of kid to blend into the background or sit quietly in the back of a classroom trying to, avoid attention. Celia was what people affectionately called pint sized with a giant heart. Even though she wasn't the tallest person in the room, her personality absolutely commanded whatever space she stepped into. Classmates, family, and neighborhood friends described her as a happy go lucky, vibrant young girl who carried an infectious, undeniable positive energy. Like, if Sally walked in with that bright smile, the whole vibe of the room shifted. And it's rare that see young ladies like that. Like, it's rare that you come across people like that. You always hear people say, "Oh, they light up every room that they go into." Sally was kind of the definition of that. And she was a hustler from the jump. Early on, she mastered the art of balancing her natural love for movement and dance with, academic excellence. She attended the P.K. Young Developmental Research School in Gainesville, which is like a top tier public school, and it's known for like its rigorous standards. And that's where Celia really started to, find her stride. In high school, she wasn't just getting her lessons down and pulling good grades. She was an athlete showing out on multiple fronts. She ran track and baby, she proved her speed on that pavement. And then she dived headfirst into competitive cheerleading. Like, she just had, I don't know, she had this like natural athletic rhythm about her. Like, she was graceful, you know, she was one of those that had that innate drive to lead. And so after handling her business and graduating from PK Young, Celia took her talent straight to Santa Fe College right there in Gainesville, Florida. And this is where she truly became a force to be reckoned with. During the 2007-2008 athletic season, she earned a coveted spot on the Santa Fe competitive cheerleading squad. And y'all know with competitive cheer, this ain't just about standing on the sidelines and going, oh, go school, go football team, waving pom poms and smiling for the crowd. Competitive cheer on the collegiate level, it requires elite athleticism, extreme core strength, hours of brutal, unforgiving practice, and absolute dedication. In a way, you are being hazed, okay? You got to watch your body. You can't eat certain stuff. You got to stay a certain size. You got to be, dedicated to running and exercising and all of that. More power to you because, baby, not this chick here. You tossing bodies in the air, hitting precise tugs, and then you gotta trust your squad with your life. I be damned if you throw me in the air and you don't catch me. Ooh, hell no. But, Celia had all of that. She was a flyer. I know that sounds weird. Not a flyer as in a piece of paper. No, she was a flyer. She was the athlete who gets launched high into the air, requiring absolute fearlessness and perfect body control. That's one of the ones I be talking about where they toss your ass up and sometimes they don't catch you. But they were happy to catch her. Okay. She was freaking awesome. She was so impactful on that Santa Fe squad that the college literally named a scholarship after her later on, the Celia Huda Cheerleader Scholarship. It was created to reward other squad members who showed the exact same attributes that Celia possessed, the high GPA excellence, the natural leadership, and the pure unadulterated dedication to the athletic department. So, Celia graduated from Santa Fe College in 2009, but she was nowhere near done building her blueprint. She had her eyes on the big prize just across town, and that was the University of Florida. Florida, excuse me. Go Gators. I think that's the mascot. Isn't it the Gators? I feel like it is. I mean, it's Florida, so it should be like that tracks. But anyway, so Celia enrolled at the University of Florida, and by the time 2010 rolled around, she was a senior. She's standing right on the cusp of graduation, and she wasn't taking, the easy electives to coast through her final semesters there either. Shawty Girl was majoring in family, youth, and community services. Like, that's a big major. Like, I mean, really think about that major for a second. Like, it tells you everything you need to know about the depth of her. Like, she wasn't out here trying to just, secure a corporate bag or look out for number 1 and forget everybody else. Her major was entirely focused on lifting up the youth and strengthening families and serving the community. In fact, her cousin Danielle talked about how Celia had big plans to take it all the way to graduate school to pursue nursing. She and her cousin Elram, they wanted to heal people. They wanted to dedicate their lives to medical and social service. Oof, more power to you. Even with, a heavy senior course load, Celia was heavily involved all over the campus. She was a member of the competitive cheer club. She was also a staple in local dance groups. Her friend Gabriela Cisneros, who served as the vice president of the club cheer squad, she talked about how dedicated Celia was, how, she was their favorite flyer. Gabriella was like, she was just full of life. She was outgoing. She was fun. She was active. She was always in a good mood. You never heard any negativity come out of her mouth. She came out for everything, all of the fundraisers and public events that they did. Like, in short, this girl was a freaking fairy, okay? Like, she was a unicorn. She did nothing wrong. But, her impact went way deeper than campus. She took that big heart of hers and went right back into the local community. She coached youth cheerleading over at Fort Clark Middle School. She mentored the next generation of young girls, showing them how to hold their heads high, hit their marks, and believe in themselves. And when she wasn't coaching or studying or practicing, she volunteered her free time at the Village, which was a local nursing home in Gainesville, Florida. And, she actually spent hours with the elderly, listening to their life stories and bringing joy to people who often, felt forgotten by society. Like, that's who this woman is. And mind you, she's only 21 years old. This is a 21-year-old powerhouse. She's a proud daughter of Ghana who's conquering a Florida school, conquering several Florida schools, actually. She's a stellar athlete, an academic overachiever, a mentor to the youth, a comfort to the seniors, and a sister with a definitive plan to change the world. But that all changed when she met Antonio. Now, Antonio Devon Drayton was born on February 20th, 1986. Now, word on the street and in, social media, especially some of these major television networks that broke the case, like Fatal Attraction, y'all know that show? So they said that Antonio was known back in the day as a little smooth talking, handsome ladies man floating around the Gainesville scene. Now, he was a local product of the Sunshine State, growing up, navigating the local neighborhoods, and baby had that smooth talk game down. He had to because homie looked like all my life I had to fight. So he had to have something. But clearly, there were some quality traits that the chicks was loving. And according to public court records tracking his family history, Antonio was raised in a household where family ties were complicated, but, they were very present. He grew up in an environment with multiple brothers and sisters sharing the same space, navigating the economic and social challenges of, local communities and everything. Now, his family pretty much disappeared from social media after this case. So, like, when I say there's no digital footprint on this man, I couldn't get the mama's name, daddy's name, nothing. But just kind of looking through social media growing up, folks from the neighborhood said that, he had an athletic build, he had a sharp look, and a serious way with words from a very young age. Now, he wasn't a loner. He was always out on the block, highly active and everything like that, kicking it with people. But as he transitioned from a kid into a teenager, that natural charm started mixing with some incredibly rough edges, y'all. Antonio attended local public schools in Florida during the 90s and early 2000s. Now, while he had the social skills and the physical capability to participate in, neighborhood sports and school activities and everything, academics were not his focus. Like at all. Unlike Celia, who was, stacking degrees and planning for grad school, Antonio didn't really wanna go down the traditional college path, like, higher education wasn't in his playbook. Instead, after his high school years, he stayed on them streets, trying to find fast ways to make money, secure the bag, and establish his presence outside the classroom. So, like, during his youth and early adulthood, his activities kinda shifted from, the standard neighborhood hanging out to more street corner shit. And public records were revealing that Antonio became deeply involved in the drug game and started hustling in the Gainesville area. Like he wasn't tracking the standard 9 to 5. He was moving through them streets heavy, establishing connections and a reputation. And according to the Alachua County court documents and the investigative files that were released by the Alachua County Sheriff's Office, Antonio was a regular customer in the criminal justice system long before he met Celia. Homeboy had some anger fucking issues. He had a heavy criminal record. I'm talking about his rap sheet was longer than Natalie Nunn's chin. He had charges that ranged from disorderly conduct, multiple narcotic charges, possession, drug distribution activity that kept his little ugly ass on the radar of local narcotic detectives. He was a repeat offender, somebody that was constantly cycling through the system, catching charges, booked into jail, and basically rinse and repeat. So, he was living fast, moving reckless, and operating in a world completely separate from the university lecture halls that Celia occupied. Okay, so here's the thing. Antonio wasn't moving alone in these streets. Y'all, he had this handsome chick. I shouldn't say handsome chick. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't gonna call nobody ugly. But he had this girlfriend named Cassandra Michelle Kimbrough. And a lot of folks in the Gainesville community were trying to figure out who she was and how she fit into the picture. Like, Cassandra is 40 years old at the time of her arrest in February of 2011. So do the math on that. That places her birthday right around 1970, 1971, and it made her significantly older than both Celia and Antonio. So why the fuck is your old ass hanging around this little young ass nigga? Like, you lived a good 4 decades before getting caught up fucking with a YN. And this is where I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
cause why is your ass 40 fucking years old fucking with somebody that's half your age? Like, you are literally old enough to be his mama. Is your self-esteem that bad? Like, ma'am, you gotta have niggas close to your age. Like, where you meet this man to play place at McDonald's? Like, your mind said, this young nigga is for me. Baby, whew, this man must have piped you something good. Mm. But anyway, much like Antonio, things like, her exact town that she was born in or, the names of her parents or her siblings, those were obsolete. Official state records don't explicitly like broadcast her early childhood home life or her parents' names or her brothers or her sisters. But what we do know from local records is that by 2010, she was fully established on the Gainesville, Florida scene. She's living out her adult life and moving through the local community. Cassandra came up during the late 70s and 80s. So, she had to navigate the school system during a completely different era. And, while public court documents don't list every single hallway that she ever walked down, the court records show that she did complete her basic school years. Like when you look into whether or not she went after a college degree, it doesn't show that higher education was in her path either. And, that's cool. Like college isn't for everybody. Now, Cassandra was all over social media as the girlfriend of Antonio Drayton. They were moving together, sharing spaces, and deeply connected. But check this, mobbers. Even though Cassandra was old enough to be Antonio's mama, she was completely wrapped up in his orbit. She was fiercely loyal to him, almost to a dangerous, catastrophic fault. Like long before the events of December of 2010, when Antonio got caught up in trouble, Cassandra was right there, like acting as his shield. Like, can we say obsessed? Like, she had actively written letters to authorities and legal figures to help get earlier domestic battery charges against him dropped. Like, she's like, "Y'all, my man is innocent. He didn't do it. The system is trying to manipulate and fail him." All of that foolishness. And, she was down to manipulate the narrative to protect him from the consequences of his own violence. Like, this is a dumbass because this man clearly is violent. And she's the one that's just like, that's my man. I'm going to stick beside him, stand by his side while he moving through these streets and through other women, one of whom was Celia Huda. And I know y'all are like, well, damn, Kay, you going to tell us how they met or not? Okay. So Celia was, deeply embedded in the local dance and social scene. She wasn't just, hiding out in the library. She was active. She was visible. She loved to move. And around 2009, when Celia and Antonio ended up in the same social spot, you know, she sees him, he sees her. The attraction is instant. Then close to the situation noted that, those close to Celia saw that, her rhythm, her confidence, her talent, it immediately had Antonio just tripping. Like he was like, damn, she lured him in with, all of her dance moves. And he saw her and was like, yo, shawty bad as hell. She exotic as shit. I want her. She had that natural star quality, and Antonio, being the smooth talking ladies man that he was, he recognized that energy right away. He stepped to her with that street smart charm of his and was like, "Hey, what's happening, baby? My name is Antonio. I'm trying to get your number, love. You fine as hell." And she's loving the attention. I guess you could say the vibe took off from there. So, what began as a mutual attraction in the local nightlife quickly solidified into an official romantic relationship, despite the fact that this nigga is still with Cassandra. Ugh. So, Antonio's charm worked, and Celia found herself drawn into his world. And once they got tight, she was fully invested. I mean, she's the type of person, who pours her heart into everything that she does, whether it's coaching kids or dealing with the person that she's seeing. So, of course, she brought that same fierce loyalty to her relationship with Antonio. But on paper, people in her inner circle were looking at his connection to her like kind of sideways. Like, you got a young sister on the verge of a degree, planning for graduate schools, and she's spending time with a nigga who's basically beneath her, for lack of better words. Like, this nigga had a whole old ass live in sugar mama. He's living a double life, playing both sides and trying to maintain control over everybody in his orbit. And y'all can just about guess that, as time went on, the relationship between Celia and Antonio became increasingly defined by control and anger and explosive arguments. It became a source of intense pressure. Antonio, he possessed heavy possessive jealous streaks, and any threat to his control would cause the temperature in the room to just skyrocket. He ain't like the attention that Celia got. But too bad, because you in a relationship with somebody that's above average. So the fuck what? Like what did you think was gonna happen? She's not trash like you. So now you want to try to make her feel less than? Fuck out of here. So witnesses and friends recalled that the arguments between Celia and Antonio weren't just standard, couple disagreements. Like they were loud, intense, and would begin escalating into physical confrontations too. Like, yo, that is crazy to me. Ooh, y'all would see me on the news so quickly. But local law enforcement had already been made aware of the volatile nature of their interactions because the cops were always being called to their house. Earlier in 2010, Antonio had reportedly choked Celia in a public parking lot during an argument that they were having. And then in June of that same year, he was accused of taking it a step further. Y'all, this nigga broke into her apartment and choked her inside of her own home. Now, he was arrested and domestic battery charges were filed against him. He was also charged with larceny, burglary, and battery. But y'all know how the old cycle of domestic abuse goes. If it's psychological, if it's complex and terrifying, he's telling the investigators, "Oh, yo, it ain't really go down like that. Like, man, I was drunk, man, and I may have pushed her, but yo, like, I ain't choke her for real, lying ass nigga." And then you got his girl, Cassandra, she over here writing letters to the, officers and all of that, talking about some, "Oh, let my man go. He's free. He didn't do nothing," all of that. And, I'm just sitting here like, the fuck? Why are you protect like he had to be beating her ass. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. He had to. And so, Cassandra's writing these letters to help get these charges dropped because she don't want her man locked away. And now you got Celia, she's facing, the pressure and the intimidation, and she ends up refusing to testify. And so because of that, the state had to drop the charges, and Antonio walks away scot-free. Psst. Hey, mobbers, listen close, okay? The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast, is stepping out from behind the studio mic and onto the stage for the 3-year anniversary live show. Get ready for an evening packed with the gripping storytelling you love, exclusive case discussions, and plenty of surprises. And did I mention that admission is 100% free? That's right, y'all. Free 99. Okay. I'm talking about drinks available for purchase at the venue, merch where you can grab exclusive anniversary gear and podcast favorites before they sell out. And plus, it's going to be a whole vibe, a room full of fellow true crime fans, deep dives, and a night to remember. Now, while tickets are entirely free, registration is required for admission. So secure yours now before they're gone. And you didn't hear it from me, but limited VIP tickets are available. Buy yours for just $25 and you'll get exclusive merch plus a private meet and greet with yours truly. Doors open at 6:30 p.m., so grab a drink, grab your seat, and let's toast to 3 years of the Infamous Ones. See you there. Now, the good thing is the abuse completely changed how Celia, had to move and how she viewed Antonio. This wasn't a man that she cared for anymore. This was a man that she feared. And, her friends saw that the vibrant, always smiling sister, started showing severe signs of stress and anxiety. The control tactics that were used against her were designed to keep her isolated and compliant. Like Antonio didn't want her to blossom. He didn't want her to bloom. He didn't want her to grow. He wanted to keep her to himself. He wanted her miserable. And, her cousin later shared that Celia was completely fed up. So by late 2010, she was done. She decided, you know what? I'm done with this. She decided to end it with Antonio. She was actively trying to end the relationship and, to pull away from the toxicity and move on with her life. She had even started seeing a new man because, beautiful women like her don't stay single long. And she was looking forward to, her upcoming graduation. She told Antonio, "I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be with you. I've met somebody else." But she even told him, she was like, "Hey, we could still be friends." But Antonio just would not go away. He felt like Celia belonged to him. Like he's genuinely mad, which is fucking blowing me. He's like, "Oh, you think you could just leave me after I gave you my time? You think you could just move on, girl? No, it ain't going down like that." Like Celia was done, but he wasn't. He refused to let go of his grip on her life. And it all came to a head on December 30th, 2010. So the day before, December 29th of 2010, Celia is attending a party with some of her friends. She's, moving through the night, trying to enjoy her life, and her phone rings, so she steps outside to answer it. And, she's having a pretty intense phone conversation. And then it's just like as if she disappears into thin air, just silence. Now, on the other side, Antonio had been talking to his girl Cassandra about how he felt disrespected. This girl got the audacity to go start fucking with another nigga, and, I gave her my time. She had moved on even though, he's clearly in this relationship. Y'all, I keep reiterating that because I don't understand. You got a whole ass fucking girlfriend with you. You've been with this whole time. So, I guess he was frustrated or whatever, and he decided that he's gonna kidnap her. And he went to where he knew Celia would be, and without anybody seeing anything, he grabs her. And, Celia, she's like, "Please just let me go. Antonio, please. You don't need to do this. Just let me go." But he wouldn't listen. He was drunk, he was angry, and he was murderous. Now, he had lied about choking her out before, but this time he was successful. Antonio grabbed her and started choking her, watching her take her last breath until she died. And I guess his drunkenness wore off and bruh sobered up real quick because he went running to Cassandra. He's like, "Yo, she's dead. I fucking killed her, man. Yo, what the fuck am I gonna do?" And he's trying to think on his feet. So him and Cassandra put Celia's body in the trunk of her car and they drive to a gas station. They get a small thing of gas and he drives them to his hometown of Stark, Florida. So they pull over on County Road 225 and they throw Celia's body in the brush. He pours the gasoline on her and he sets her on fire to try to burn the body. And again, this is where I start to think,
You know you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
you don't use gasoline on a body, you freaking idiot. That is not how you burn a body. Like, you would have been better using acid or something like that. Like, you already killed her. Burning a body, it takes a while. And y'all set her on fire, but you really thought that it would just poof pow turn into ashes? Like, I gotta change y'all names to Dumb and Dumber. Anyway, so now that they set her body on fire, they get up out of there and they ditch her car. And Antonio drives them to his friend's house to try to get some bleach and, some stuff like that so that they can clean up. Please tell me, y'all couldn't afford your own bleach? Please don't commit crimes if you can't afford the cleanup material. I'm just saying. So, anyway, I'm sorry. Now, Celia's family began to panic when she didn't come home or answer her phone, which, it instantly told them that something was terribly wrong. So a few hours later, around 2:40 in the morning on Thursday, December 30th, a passerby is driving along Alachua County Road 225 just north of the Gainesville Raceway. And they're spotting flames that are flickering in the dark. Like it looks like it's just a little brush fire about the size of a small car. And they're like, okay, this looks weird. It's burning on the west side of the road, just off the pavement. So to be on the safe side, they call 911. Hey, I think there's a brush fire going on over here. You guys may want to get somebody to come check it out. So they give the information and they dispatch the Gainesville Fire Department out to respond. A brush truck from nearby was also responding, but I think they ended up getting called off because the local crew put the fire out fairly quickly. So cool, whatever. But when the smoke cleared and the firefighters stepped closer to inspect the scorched earth and see what caused the fire, they realized they weren't just looking at burned grass and wood. What they discovered was a nightmare because laying in the ashes was the badly burned body of a young woman. They immediately locked down the scene and called in law enforcement to investigate. The Alachua County Sheriff's Office detectives rushed to the scene. And due to the severe condition of the remains, they brought in a police dog that was trained specifically to sniff out accelerants to see if somebody had, intentionally set the fire. And it didn't take long for that truth to surface. They did. The body was identified as 21-year-old Celia Huda. Now, right out the gate, Alachua County Sheriff spokesman Art Forgy told the Gainesville Sun that they were treating the case as a definitive homicide. He stated, "We obviously think it's a homicide, and that is how we're working it." So the police launch an investigation and it goes into overdrive, but they're hitting a brick wall in one area. Where the hell is Celia's car? She had a 2001 silver Nissan Sentra that went missing. So investigators knew that finding that car was the key to unlocking the entire mystery. And again, Art Forgy, he went on the record telling the public, it didn't drive itself to where it was found. So they needed to track the digital and physical movements of that vehicle. Now, that breakthrough came about 4 days later on Monday, January 3rd, 2011. So a citizen noticed a car that had been sitting idle and abandoned for a couple of days just north of the Gainesville Raceway, parked in the 1500 block of Southwest 42nd Street. And so what did they do? They called the police. And when the deputies arrived, they confirmed it is Celia's Nissan Sentra. Now, the car had been recently painted a unique titanium silver, and it featured aftermarket headlights and prominently displayed a University of Florida cheerleading sticker in the rear window. So they knew off the bat that it was her car. But here's the thing, the car was found about 14 miles away from where her body had been dumped and burned. And when detectives open the car and they look inside, they see her purse that belonged to Celia is sitting right there on the seat. They had, basically Cassandra and Antonio had abandoned the vehicle, leaving her personal items behind. I guess they thought that that's how they were going to clear their tracks. I don't know. But the Nissan was immediately towed away to the sheriff's office forensics garage, where technicians began going over it with a fine tooth comb. They're looking for DNA, fingerprints, and fibers. And on Wednesday, January 5th, a medical examiner's report was officially released to the public. The findings were definitive and heartbreaking, honestly. The medical examiner ruled that Celia Huda had been killed before the fire was ever started. She was already gone when her body was placed in that wooded area. Her death was officially ruled as a result of a homicidal violence. So the investigation revealed that she had been killed at an entirely separate location. Her body was moved, then dumped on the side of County Road 225 and then set on fire. It was a cold, calculated, desperate attempt to completely erase her, destroy the forensic trail, and melt away any evidence of the assault. Now, within weeks of this horrific discovery, the hammer of justice came down heavy. They were already looking at Antonio, who was, he's playing the grieving friend. He's just like, "Oh my God, her death is just so tragic. I can't believe this shit, man." And he really think that people are falling for it too. But after a relentless investigation, the Alachua County Sheriff's Office moved in and they made their arrests on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2011, the day that they found her car. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That was like exactly a month after they found her car. So they locked down two suspects, 24-year-old Antonio Drayton and his 42-year-old girlfriend, Cassandra Michelle Kimbrough. So the police reports and the grand jury indictments laid out a narrative that was absolutely hilarious. The state alleged that Antonio Drayton had confronted Celia in a fit of jealous rage, using homicidal violence to take her life, which we all know. But he didn't just panic and run. He contacted his loyal, compliant girlfriend, Cassandra Kimbrough. And instead of doing the right thing and dialing 911 or backing away, Cassandra jumped right into the fire with him. She agreed to help him cover up the murder of the young woman who had replaced her. So the state revealed that they had put together a mountain of ironclad evidence against the couple. The detectives utilized advanced cell phone transmission mapping. They tracked Antonio's and Cassandra's phones on the night of the murder, showing that their devices pinged off the exact same cell towers near the location where Salia's body was dumped and where her car was abandoned. Like the digital footprints pretty much had their asses. But, the street level details in the police logs made it even more damning. Investigators uncovered that on the night of Celia's death, both Antonio and Cassandra had actively gone around to their social circles asking friends for heavy duty bleach. Why are you committing a crime and you can't afford to clean up? So they were hunting for cleaning supplies in the middle of the night to scrub away DNA, blood, and forensic evidence from the primary murder scene. They dumbasses left a trail of witnesses who could testify to their desperate cleanup operations. So the two of them get arrested and they're charged. Antonio Devin Drayton was charged with first degree murder. And if y'all know, like I know, that's a capital offense that carries a mandatory life sentence or the death penalty in Florida. But he was also charged with grand theft of a motor vehicle for stealing Celia's Nissan Sentra. He was charged with abuse of a dead human body, mutilation of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, obstruction of a criminal investigation, and willful reckless burning of lands. And little miss, that's my man, I'ma stand behind him or beside him, whatever. Cassandra, she was charged with accessory to first degree murder, grand theft of a motor vehicle, abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and willful burning of lands. So the two of them both pleaded not guilty. Y'all heard me. They pleaded not guilty. So the state, they started getting ready for court. And the prosecutor was State Attorney Bill Cervoni. And he had a whole team of attorneys. Like the state attorney's office had a spokesperson, Spencer Mann, that was hilarious to me. They knew they had a powerful case, but at the same time, they also knew that a first degree murder trial before a jury, it can be unpredictable because you may think that you have an ironclad case and then boom, a surprise. So Saverni's office began kind of, playing a little bit of legal chess. They went to Cassandra because they knew she was a weak link. They were like, hey, we know you're not the one that actually killed Celia. So I tell you what, you already in your 40s. I know you ain't trying to spend the rest of your life behind bars. So just tell us what Antonio did, testify against him, and we'll cut you a deal. That bitch ain't even hesitate. Late June of 2000, baby, Cassandra Michelle Kimbrough looked at that mountain of evidence against her. She saw them cell phone pings, the bleach request, the forensic, and she realized she was facing decades behind bars. So she decided to save herself. Cassandra stood before the circuit judge and officially changed her plea from not guilty to guilty. She pleaded guilty to a significantly reduced charge of accessory after the fact in connection to Celia's death. But y'all already know how the state plays it. Deals don't come free. So, in order for her to keep her plea deal, she had to completely flip on her boyfriend. The state required her to cooperate fully with investigators and stand on the witness stand and testify as the state's star witness against Antonio Drayton if his case went to trial. So, by securing her plea and her agreement to testify, State Attorney Bill Cervoni, he essentially, cut the legs out from under Antonio's defense. Now, if Antonio still decided that he wanted to go to trial, he was screwed because his own girlfriend was going to look a jury in the eye and detail exactly how he killed Celia and how they burned the body together. And for her testifying against Antonio, the judge sentenced Cassandra Kimbrough to just 2 years in state prison. 2 years. Y'all know I'm gonna get on that shit, right? So because she flipped and agreed to testify, she walked away with a slap on her wrist compared to the, gravity of the crime. She served her short block of time in the Florida Department of Corrections and was released back out into society as a free woman walking the streets while Celia Huda rests permanently in the earth. Now, with Cassandra locked in to testify for the prosecution, Antonio Drayton was backed completely into a legal corner. He was looking at a potential death sentence of life without parole or, the death penalty. And with all of that against him, Antonio and his defense attorneys, they decided to bypass a jury trial altogether. So there wasn't going to be like, weeks long trial spectacles, no dramatic witness cross examinations and all of that. And on May 3rd, 2012, Antonio Devon Drayton stood before the circuit judge, waived his right to a jury trial, and entered a negotiated plea. The state attorney's office allowed him to plead guilty to a reduced charge of second degree murder, along with pleading guilty to grand theft of the vehicle, setting fire to her body, and tampering with evidence. State Attorney Bill Cerrone went on the record addressing the resolution, stating to the media that given the complexities of the case, the timeline, and the layout of the evidence, this negotiated plea was an entirely appropriate sentence and a successful definitive resolution for everyone seeking justice for Celia. Now, since he was the one that actually killed Celia, the judge sentenced Antonio Devon Drayton to a total of 45 years in state prison. 30 years for the second degree murder, stacked with an additional 15 years for the mutilation of a human corpse. He received concurrent 5-year sentences for grand theft of a motor vehicle, obstruction of a criminal investigation, and reckless burning of land. And under Florida law, he's required to serve at least 85% of that sentence before he can even think about a potential release date. His current official scheduled release date is locked in for April 23rd, 2050. Fuck, that's a long time. He would have spent nearly his entire adult life behind bars. But Antonio is currently inmate number 134880 at the Franklin Correctional Institute in Carabel, Florida. Now, today, if you visit Gainesville, Florida, you can find the final resting place of Celia Huda. She was buried in the Forest Meadows Memorial Park and Mausoleum Central. Her grave stands as a silent reminder of a life full of light that was tragically cut short by the ultimate expression of domestic violence and control. But her story shouldn't just be remembered for how it ended in those woods off of County Road 225. We have to remember how she lived. We have to remember the daughter of Ghana who crossed the ocean, who conquered the hallways of PK Young, who lit up the sidelines at Santa Fe College and the University of Florida. We have to remember the coach who taught young girls to hold their heads high at Fort Clark Middle School, and the volunteer who brought smiles to the elderly at the village. Her family was left completely devastated by the loss. Her cousin Elram, beautifully and painfully noted back in 2011 how tragic and profoundly disrespectful it was for such a loved, cared for, and hardworking soul to have her bright future completely stolen away by a toxic cycle she was actively trying to escape. But, her legacy, it's protected. The Celia Huda Cheerleader Scholarship still stands at Santa Fe College to this day, funding the dreams of young athletes who possess that same dedication and academic excellence. Her spirit lives on in every life she touched, every routine she danced, and every boundary she broke. Let this story be a lesson to the block mobbers. Like, watch the company that you keep, okay? But that is the tragic story of Celia Huda. And now it is time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if the sentencing that was given was indeed fair, or if it was just some bullshit that's gonna have us sitting back saying, what the fuck? Okay, so let's start with the golden girl, Cassandra. The fact that Cassandra only got 2 years in prison is fucking blowing me. This bitch helped burn this girl's body. You was with this nigga the entire time like some duck while he's mad because his ex moved on. Ain't no way in fuck a nigga gonna be blatantly mad about the next bitch and then come fuck me? Nah, no sir, no sir. You can go to the pits of hell and suck Satan's dick for all I care. Like at the end of the day, she should have gotten more time. Yes, I get it that she flipped on her man or whatever and the state offered her that, but bitch, you older, you know better. You knew the consequences of it. And you got away scot free. Hell, she basically did time served because the trial wasn't until the next year, and all she had to do was just sit in there for a raggedy ass 2 years. But this girl got fucking choked out, killed, and then burned beyond recognition, and you helped her. Or excuse me, you helped him with that. And now all of a sudden you come to your senses and want to talk? Where the fuck were your senses beforehand? Where the fuck were your senses when you was fucking on this little young ass boy? Cause that's what the fuck he is, a little boy. Where the fuck was your senses when he told you, hey, I'm gonna kill my ex and I want you to help me? I still can't get over the fact that he is in a whole ass relationship with you and tripping over his ex moving on. How are you okay with this? Like, ain't no telling how many other bitches he was fucking. So, because he got mad that she didn't want to be with him anymore, he decided to kill her. But yet he's still fucking you, and you take pride in that. The fuck is wrong with you? You got to have the worst. Like, you got to be the worst low self esteem bitch on the planet because that nigga would have been single. I love myself entirely too much for that. Like, you are a pretty girl. Let his mutt faced ass go and get you a real nigga. Get you a man. You are in Florida. You should feel really stupid because, ma'am, your ass is walking around here 40 fucking plus years old and fucking on a nigga that's basically using you for your money or your help or whatever else. Because he damn sure didn't give a shit about you. And he's literally still lusting after somebody else. So to quote Cat Williams, how do you feel about you, stupid bitch? Like, it's blowing me. And then for Antonio's ass to only get 45 fucking years because he pled guilty, that's bullshit. Like on this one, life for a motherfucking life. Something is wrong with you. There is a history of domestic violence here. There is a history of abuse. This wasn't the first time that you went after Celia. This wasn't the first time that you put your hands on her. She tried to get away from your ass. She moved on. You moved on. So what was the reason?
What was the reason?
Clearly you had other bitches. So what was it that just had you so caught up on her? You couldn't just walk away. You couldn't just leave shit alone. You couldn't let her be happy. You were happy with Cassandra supposedly. But you know what? I think what it was is Celia saw you for who you really were. She knew the real you and she ain't like it. And I don't think you were used to somebody rejecting you. I'm low key wondering if you was whooping Cassandra's ass too. Like that's the only way that I could see her staying with you out of fear and doing all of this out of fear. But for Celia, you suffocated her like you've choked her out before. Then you had to fucking burn her body to where her parents couldn't even fucking get a proper funeral. That shit is insane to me. You are the prime candidate for a $42 cocktail, my nigga, and you in the state of Florida too. And if I'm not mistaken, the death penalty is still very much legal there. So that's why your ass need to be burnt the fuck up. Pump them damn chemicals through your veins and watch you die slow, you raggedy bastard. You killed her because she rejected you and left you for somebody else that was treating her better. But here's my thing, nigga, you were the one that did wrong. Take accountability. Own up to your part in it. All of this was your fault. You beat her. You did her dirty. You lied to her and physically hurt her. And you got the audacity, the negroidial gall, because she had the common sense to say she didn't want to be with you no more. Do you know how many people get rejected on a daily basis? But that don't mean they're going around killing people. It just means there's other women out there for you. It just means to find somebody else that can appreciate you. And my nigga, you found somebody else because you was with Cassandra. So what the fuck? But guess what? She flipped on your ass the first chance she got. So now you got 45 years to have all the relationships that you want from behind bars. Good luck. That is all for this week's episode of the Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's a number one, by the way, not spelled out, and you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group, but please be advised if you don't answer the questions, you can't get in. It's just that simple. And I know I just, let a ton of people in there. So come on in and take a seat. Tell us where you're from and what you're sipping on. You can now subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Infamous Ones, and review there as well. Oh, Saturday, October 10th, 2026, the Infamous One's 3-year live anniversary show is happening in ATL. Tickets are available now. The event is free, but you have to register on Eventbrite. The space is limited, so you must register to attend. Now, there are a few VIP tickets available at $25 each. If you purchase a VIP ticket, you'll have front row access, you get a free t-shirt, and a private meet and greet with yours truly. And of course, Tipsy Sips will be serving up the drinks. Yes, drinks are going to be available for purchase. So click the link on the episode description, or you can click the link that's pinned in the Facebook group, or you can search on Eventbrite, howsoever you choose to do. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. The reviews matter. And speaking of the reviews, let's get to one. The first review comes from Spotify from Lawanda Ashley on the Daddies and Fathers episode. If y'all remember, that was where I did Ronnie O'Neal, and he was the example of the bad dad. And then I did Brie Austin's husband, who was the example of the good dad. It says, okay, so Shay, we don't go in people's personal things without asking. Not saying Thaddeus wasn't wrong, but girl, you see how this looks? Regardless of what may or may not be in the closet, you shouldn't be in there. That part of the story is just wild to me. Also, Fair or Foul had me dying laughing. Girl. Thank you, boo. I appreciate the review. And yes, going in somebody's closet, you gotta ask. But honestly, you know what? I'm pretty sure they were all toe back off some shit because they had been kicking it all day and drinking and everything. Like that's the only thing that I can think of. But again, thank you for the review. The next review comes from Apple Podcasts from Empress Yaya, and it's 5 stars captioned, I just love. And it says, I listened to your last podcast about King from Detroit. I love your wit and attention to detail. Your storytelling is unmatched. I hope you can keep going and give me more to listen to each week. Well, thank you, Empress Yaya. Yes, I'm going to keep going. So keep listening and tell a friend and then tell them to tell a friend and tell another friend. Aye. If you want to support the show, or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor that we've been sipping on, click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support. You can also donate via the Cash App at $infamous1pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward court documentations, interviews, all of that. And shout out to everybody that donated for the promo. I love y'all so much. Now, if you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about the $30 ad space special, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. And once again, people, please share, share, share. This podcast is growing by the day and it means the world, so keep sharing. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Stay mobbing, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.